Good morning. I want to talk to you about a quote that's been on my mind for quite some time. I did sales back in 2009, and this quote was the motto of our office. It says, "This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow, as the night the day, thou canst not be false to any man." And this is a quote from Shakespeare in his play Hamlet. I want to make a case to you that this quote is dramatically taken out of context, and we're made to believe that it's wisdom because it's Shakespeare after all. But we can, if we look at the context, I think we'll see that it's actually quite foolish, and it's not something that we should be living our lives by. And I know that people are living their lives by this. At one point, I was wanting to tattoo it on my arm, and I'm really glad that I wasn't foolish enough to do that. Um, and there's a lot of similar philosophies out there, like, this is me, born this way, this is just who I am, I'm just being true to myself, and I'm just being authentic, and I think it's all very misguided, and it's a huge problem in our culture right now, and so that's why I wanted to make this video. So let's take a closer look at some criticism from a professional. His name is Arthur Henry King, and he is a doctor. He's dead now, but he had a doctorate in literature and stylistics. He served as Assistant Director General in charge of education in England. Beginning in 1943, he was an official in the British Council, serving in Europe, Persia, and Pakistan. He was twice decorated by Queen Elizabeth II for his work on the council. He was actually also offered C.S. Lewis's position as the head chair of literature at Cambridge, which he turned down for another job that he was wanting to do. Okay, so what does Arthur Henry King say about looking at the context of passages? Let me just read directly from his words. He says, "When we have gotten a hold of a writer's attitude or the attitude of one of his characters, we can make moral judgments about that writer or character. That ultimately is what the rhetorical approach is about, and that is the difference between the rhetorical approach and the modern linguistic approach. The rhetorical approach is always aiming at an evaluation, a judgment. It is always asking, is this good or bad? This is a classical technique. So if you look at classical education, rhetoric is a very important aspect of that. I jump ahead here. It says, evaluation is not easy, but it's what we have to do in our daily lives, and we have to do it when we are reading too. And it means study and careful reading and slowness." Okay? So if we look at the context of this scene, who said this? It wasn't Hamlet. It was actually the character Polonius, who's kind of a bit of a villain in the play Hamlet. If you want to revisit that play, then there's a few great productions. My favorite one is with Kent Branagh. It is a 4-hour long production. It's amazing. Also one by Ethan Hawke, which is not my favorite, but it's a short one. They condense it to more like 2 hours. Might be a good place to start. So Polonius was a counselor, like the king's chief counselor. You're like, oh, well, that sounds good, right? One thing Shakespeare often does, though, is he makes people who should be wise, like on the appearance, like his position as a wise man, but he's actually the most foolish man in the play. Shakespeare will do the contrary of sometimes the fool or the lowly person. Oftentimes those are the most wise people in the play. In Hamlet, it's a gravedigger is one of the wisest people in the play. So that's a common thing that Shakespeare will do, first off. But anyway, so he's the chief counselor to the king. And the king is a traitor and a murderer, by the way. He plotted to kill the real king so that he could take his place. So this is who Polonius is. And throughout the whole play, Polonius is constantly spying on everybody. He's kind of a little weaselly guy. He's always spying on, and he's trying to control and manipulate everything. And he was killed, spoiler alert, by Hamlet in Act 3, which is usually the act that everything changes in a Shakespeare play. That was like the turning point, is once Hamlet killed Polonius, it changed everything. And when Hamlet killed him, all that he said about him was, he was in life a foolish, prating knave. That's not really what you want to be said about you when you die. There's something else. Oh, it also says, I'll lug the guts into the neighbor room. So Polonius is not a good guy. He had a dishonorable death. He died spying on Hamlet. Hamlet mistook him for his treacherous uncle and killed him. Anyway, so this is kind of the context of who Polonius is. Now, we can look at even the context of the statement, this above all to thine own self be true. And it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man. So who is Polonius saying this to? What's the situation there? Well, his son, he's saying it to his son Laertes. And Laertes is about to go on a trip. I think he's going back to school in like another country. And here's what Arthur Henry King says about this conversation. He says, it is perfunctory advice from a worldly father to a worldly son who has no intention whatever of carrying any of it out. And the father knows that, but he is doing the correct thing on the occasion. The sentiments of that speech, perfunctory as they are directly opposed to the sense that Shakespeare has of the generous soul, the magnanimous soul. This is a miserable and meanly prudential speech. I hope never again shall we have Polonius quoted on any occasion. Polonius was a wicked old man and is so presented to us. He was a coarse and vulgar old man. And then he makes a statement here, which I think is really pivotal. So here we have this huge tidal wave, tsunami in our American culture of this same idea. Be authentic, be true to yourself. This is me. This is who I should be. I can't be anyone else. And it sounds really good. But he makes a statement, if the false man is true to himself, what is he? Think about that. Or I've made a statement that Polonius was very foolish and he was weaselly. If he's true to himself, what is he? So I hope that I can have made a case here. And there's a whole speech that Polonius gives to his son Laertes, but that's really the one that most people quote, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. I hope I've made a case that it's really stupid advice and that we need to look to something bigger than ourselves. And I'd use the Christian analogy of building your house on a rock instead of on sand. If you're trying to build your life on authenticity in yourself, I really believe that's building your life on sand. Coming from someone who has done that, that's my thought for you. I think we need to be building our life on true principles and on our roles that we have with other people, father, mother, parent, son, daughter. I think that's kind of where I've arrived at that point, and that's really what served humanity very well for thousands of years. So I want to share with you both a lesson about this quote, which I believe is a misguided quote, and then also it's a lesson on taking things out of context and using rhetoric to interpret something, from literature and so forth. And if you look up this quote, it's actually really hard to even find the reference. You can't find what scene or act is from. So that's a really lazy thing that we do. So those are my thoughts. Thanks for listening if you made it this far.